Hey! You still don't have a Sega CD? Huh? What are you waiting for? Nintendo to make one? You have seen the games, right? Wrong answer, man. Show 'em!
The Sega CD, Sega's foray into the world of CD media. This attachment for your Genesis added nearly 700 megs of storage, a faster processor, as well as some interesting new visual tricks. It's also garnered a reputation as a system primarily for terrible FMV games. But is that all there is to this system? I don't know, let's find out by playing some noteworthy games, starting with Afterburner 3. The sequel to the amazing Afterburner 2, which is the sequel to the amazing Afterburner arcade game. All of these games were inspired by Top Gun and have you piloting the greatest, most iconic fighter jet ever, the F-14 Tomcat.
The F-14 Tomcat. Caged lightning with million-dollar missiles and a Vulcan 20mm cannon.
All you gotta do is shoot the enemy aircraft and avoid their missiles. Easy, right? Anyway, Afterburner 3 on the Sega CD feels quite a bit different from the prequels, and I think it's because it's actually a port of an arcade game called Strike Fighter. The first thing that's different is the in-cockpit view. There's also a behind-the-fighter mode too, but I don't know, something is off. I think it's the fact that your jet doesn't auto-level like a real Afterburner game. So yeah, you could just fly upside down all day if you wanted. Music is streamed off the CD, so it's naturally amazing. Listen to this. Gameplay could be better though. It's actually very rare that I avoid an incoming missile, so I end up blowing up billions of dollars worth of aircraft. Sorry about that, US Navy. I'll pay it back, I promise. Not an awful game, but definitely not up to the standard of the originals. Dragon's Lair. Released to arcades in 1983, this is the world's first Laserdisc game where you help Dirk the Daring rescue Daphne from the evil Singe the Dragon. That's a lot of D's in that sentence. Don Bluth gets a lot of credit for animating the game, but let's not forget Rick Dyer, who actually developed it. I was really excited to try the Sega CD version, but let me tell you, it is frustrating. The problem is the timing. Sometimes it's better to hold the button or direction, and other times it's better to just tap it over and over again. If you press too early, you're screwed. Later versions, and I think even the arcade, are more forgiving than this. Also, some of the moves are unnecessary, as I found in the Tentacle Room. You don't have to push up like in other versions. The graphics are rather unpleasant to look at, being so grainy. Sure, the sound is great, but, you know, that's to be expected coming off of a CD. Overall, this could have been a decent version of the game if it only had more forgiving controls. Dungeon Master 2: The Legend of Skullkeep. This is an RPG series that I absolutely love, which is unusual for me. I played through the original game on my Atari ST at least 3 different times. It's a role-playing game in a first-person perspective where you move through the dungeon, solve puzzles, defeat enemies, and gain experience. What I like about it is how the experience you get is based off of what you do. For example, if you throw rocks around, your character gains strength. Makes sense to me. This sequel to the original game appeared on the Amiga, PC, Mac, and of course, the Sega CD. This version could have been good if the Sega CD had a mouse and a keyboard, because honestly, the controller just does not cut it. Selecting movement or action boxes makes the pointer jump, and picking up things on the main menu is too slow. Come on, I got monsters chasing me. One nice improvement is the built-in map. Finally! No more hunting for my 30-year-old printed maps. Another improvement is that you can move stuff around the room, such as tables, which could make puzzle solving more interesting. This is a long game, so I haven't gotten too far into it, but other than the controls, I like what I see here. Final Fight CD. Capcom's street brawling game came to arcades in 1989 and featured 3 characters: Cody, Guy, and Hagar. It's got a very unique story too. Check this out. Hedgehog's daughter has been kidnapped by a crime boss and you have to rescue her. Right. The only way to save her is by punching and kicking your way through numerous different thugs and defeat the end stage boss. You can grab your enemies and throw them into the gang, knocking them all down. Man, I love that part. The Super Nintendo got a version of Final Fight, but it was watered down. The Sega CD version was miles better because it included all 3 characters, displays more thugs on the screen, has more stages, has beautiful music and sound, and is 2-player simultaneous. Take that, Super Nintendo! Graphics are a little grainy here and there, but that's not a deal breaker at all. This is one game that I would definitely want to own for the Sega CD. Lords of Thunder. A side-scrolling shoot-'em-up originally developed for the Turbo CD in 1993. You assume the role of Duran and must defeat the terrible might of the 6 generals and evil god Derek. Well, that's what the manual says anyway. I'm just here for the shooting. The first thing you'll notice about the Sega CD version is the rockin' soundtrack. Man, this sounds like it came straight out of a 80s hair metal band. Next, check out the incredible visuals. Each stage is a feast for the eyes with highly detailed graphics and animation. In between stages, you can buy power-ups like shields, health, and magic. You'll definitely want to make the most of these power-ups to get through the game. Now, the Turbo CD version has better color and some other minor differences, but overall, this is a great shooter for the Sega CD.
Mania, the timeless adventures of me, Mickey Mouse.
One of the many Disney games that appeared on Sega platforms. This one actually might be the best yet. Castle of Illusion is great and all, but it doesn't take you through scenes of classic Mickey Mouse cartoons like this one does. You start off in 1928's Steamboat Willie, where the stage is presented in black and white. Later stages include the Mad Doctor, Moose Hunters,
Watch for falling rocks.
Lonesome Ghosts, Mickey and the Beanstalk, and more.
Going higher.
Mickey's weapon of choice are marbles you can collect and throw. You can also jump on enemies if you run out. I love the amount of voice that's included in this version. Mickey announces the title as well as other things within the stage, such as when he sees the skeletons. Man, that's a tongue twister. The music is absolutely brilliant and appropriate for each stage.
It's a move. Here, boy.
And let's not forget some of the graphical tricks used in this game. Not just the tower and the moose chase, but there's little touches everywhere that keep me curious to see what's next. Some original reviews of the game claim that it's too easy and for kids, and that's probably true.
I remember you.
But I think any Disney fan would enjoy playing this one.
Ooh.
The Misadventures of Flink, or just Flink. Here we have a typical side-scrolling platform game. Flink is a wannabe wizard on a quest to save the 4 rulers of Imagica, who have been trapped in hidden crystals. Yeah, sure, okay, whatever. Like most platform games, you can jump on the heads of your enemies and knock them out. Unlike other platform games, you can also collect magic ingredients that can be mixed into potions. Some examples include lightning bolts, bombs, shrink, create a ghost, create platforms, and others. Reminds me a bit of Super Mario Bros. Power-ups, only way more complicated. Sometimes you have to do some mild puzzle solving, like throwing a rock to launch yourself on a seesaw. That's fun. I find the graphics to be highly detailed and a big reason to play this game. It is beautiful. Unfortunately, the color is quite drab. Yeesh. Of course, the sounds and music are fantastic, and they'd better be because that's the only difference between the Sega CD and the cartridge version of this game. So why get this one? Well, there isn't a Genesis version, just the Mega Drive, so if you wanted to play it in North America, the Sega CD was your only option. Mortal Kombat! Oh yeah, I love me some Mortal Kombat. The digitized fighter already appeared on the Genesis, and I played that version to death. When the Sega CD version was released, I looked at it and thought, wow, this does not look like much of an improvement. Okay, yeah, sure, there's a few minor details here and there, like flames in this stage, or the bloody heads at the bottom of the pit, and more details on the floor of Goro's lair, and those blinking eyes in the background. The bigger differences, though, is the amount of character animation and sound effects. They are definitely better. There's also more voice, more sound effects, and way better music. But let me tell you one thing that is definitely not better, and that is loading times. The stages have to load, the fatalities have to load, the second character in the endurance match has to load, and worst of all, Shang Tsung's transformations have to load. You're totally ruining my vibe, Shang Tsung. Ugh. But you know, hey, at least you don't have to enter that blood code every time. The Sega CD version seems nicer overall, and it would be absolutely perfect if it weren't for the loading times. Night Trap. A full-motion game where you creep on girls by monitoring TV cameras in a house.
Megan. Hey. Lisa. Hi.
What you need to do is trap these monsters called augurs, so they don't kill any of the girls. How do you trap the augurs? Well, first you have to cycle to the right camera by selecting it with the A button. Then, if you're early enough and see the augurs appear, you can press B to trap them. Easy, right? First, you have to know which camera to view in advance, and the only way to do that is to go through this game numerous times to learn it. No cheating by looking it up on the internet. Second, and most annoyingly, you have to know the correct security code color to set off the traps, and it can change at any time. The only way to know about the change is to view the video clip where the homeowners reveal the new code. How the heck are you supposed to find that? I was always curious about this game because of the controversy, but not anymore. I find it to be extremely frustrating and rage-inducing. Oh, and the grainy graphics aren't doing the Sega CD any favors, that's for sure. Panic. In this really whacked out game, you apparently play as a cartoon character named Slap who must save the world from a computer virus by pressing buttons to get to the computer network server. Press the wrong button and something really weird might happen. Press the right button and you move to the next stage. You can also press the wrong button and go back a stage, which kinda sucks. Some of the animations are very fun to watch. I especially like seeing all the different things that could happen to the Mona Lisa. This game makes absolutely no sense, and is it even really a game? Maybe you could classify it as a memorization game, I guess. Anyway, as I was playing, I couldn't help but think about the movie Maximum Overdrive when all the machines go nuts. Finally, something that makes that movie make more sense.
Yeah. Oh, at last! The summit! Oh.
Road Avenger. One of the best full-motion video games I have ever played. This was originally a Laserdisc arcade game from 1985 called Road Blaster in Japan. I'm sure you can guess why the name was changed to Road Avenger when it was ported to the Sega CD. Yep, there was already a game here in America called Road Blasters by Atari Games. The original game was animated by Toei Animation, who also created movies in the Gundam and Macross series, as well as working on the original Transformers the movie. You know, I thought that style of animation looked familiar. Your goal is to drive your car, as seen in the beginning of Double Dragon, through dangerous roads, boat docks, malls, and more. Well, I guess anyway, I can't get much further than this. I really like how forgiving this game is, and it even tells you what to do on the screen. Thank you! The animation window is small and grainy, so this version isn't the greatest, but still, it's one of the most enjoyable Sega CD games out there. Road Rash. Originally released on cartridge for the Genesis in 1991, Road Rash is a motorcycle combat racing game. I never had much interest in the game based on the box art. It's just some dudes racing motorcycles. I don't know, it looked kind of boring to me. Then one day I tried it and I was blown away. There's something appealing about whacking your opponents in the head with a club and knocking them off their bikes. Finally, a realistic motorcycle racing game. Now, Road Rash 3 sent the series overseas, but the Sega CD version is back home in America. Probably because it shares assets with the 3DO version, like some FMV scenes and wacky character stills. It doesn't have the 3DO's visuals though, and the buildings in the city are mostly freestanding in the middle of a field. What does this game think it is, Technocop? As for the gameplay, well, it's good, but it feels odd somehow. Maybe because I'm so used to the original game's lower frame rate. The music is very high quality, but I kinda miss the clunky chiptunes of the Genesis game. Might be better to just mute the music and play a song of your choice. Still, this is quite possibly the best 16-bit version of Road Rash ever made. Maybe.
Yeah.
Snatcher. This is Hideo Kojima's cyberpunk adventure game originally released for Japanese computers, the PC Engine, PlayStation, and Sega Saturn, but the Sega CD version is the only one that's in English.
I'm Gillian Seed. I've been assigned to Junker headquarters effective today.
Oh, you're Mr. Seed. Please forgive me.
You play as Gillian Seed, who has lost his memory but is tasked with stopping humanoid robots called Snatchers. You start off by going to Junker headquarters and talking with different people to determine your next step.
Thanks for coming, Seed. I'm Benson Cunningham, the Chief of Junker Operations.
Now normally these kinds of graphic adventure games don't interest me, but Snatcher is different somehow. I think it's because of the setting and the story. It's a mix of several sci-fi movies like The Terminator, Blade Runner, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and of course, Akira. Eventually you get to this abandoned building and have to shoot these little small robots to stay alive. The look of the game is gorgeous. Very clean but cartoony visuals. Some of it is amazingly gory too, like this image of your partner's head that's cut off. Ugh. I can only imagine how much gorier it gets later in the game.
Chromosomal analysis of cells from the papilla and root revealed 46XY. Subject is male.
If I could own any Sega CD game, it would have to be this one. Unfortunately, it's going for crazy money. $533 on PriceCharting.com and between $600 and $2,000 on eBay. Yeesh. So, the best way to play it is through emulation, I'm afraid. No wonder why Dave is always trying to steal Joe's copy.
I wish I could have done more.
You performed your duties quite satisfactorily.
That's right. It's not your fault, Gillian. Don't worry about it.
Sol-Feace. Developed by Wolf Team in 1990, this horizontal shooter originally appeared on the Sharp X68000, then the Sega CD, and finally the Sega Genesis, where it was renamed Sol-Feace. And that's because Sunsoft owned the name and the cartridge publisher Renovation couldn't use it. Dumb. Whenever I think of this game, I can't help but remember James Rolfe's AVGN episode where he says, Sol-Feace, more like Sol-Feces. Classic. There are 6 stages, but because I stink, I can only show you the first 2. Looks like there's no continues, which is quite annoying. visuals, while good, aren't mind-blowing or anything. You'd think they'd be better considering the Sega CD's virtually unlimited memory. As for the music, well, it's good and of high quality, but nothing really to write home about. In my mind, this game is way better than it actually is. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but in a sea of amazing Sega shooters, this one's very average. Sonic CD. So the Sega CD got something the Saturn never did, a proper Sonic game. Wait, you never heard of Sonic the Hedgehog? Well, let me enlighten you. You play as a blue hedgehog whose very confusing world has been infested by the evil Dr. Robotnik's robots. If you jump on them, they'll turn into flowers. Makes sense, right? Along the way, you need to collect rings because Mario collects coins. You know, we gotta be different from him somehow. If you collect 50 rings and get them to the end of the stage, you'll enter a special stage. Playing as Sonic is most enjoyable when he runs really fast and goes through loop-de-loops. Sometimes he gets stuck though trying to walk up a slight incline. Better to charge up and dash through those areas. One of the key differences between this and earlier games is the ability to travel to the past or future of a stage. First, you select the sign to which direction you want to go, and then run really fast to change the time period. Now, I'm sure there's a reason to do this, but I'm not sure why. Also, the stage designs are confusing. It's like a 3-year-old took a bunch of Lego bricks and just randomly stuck them all together. As expected, the music is great, but I wouldn't play the game just for that. Sonic games are fun when they're not too over the top, but this one is just over the top. Soulstar. Here we have a Sega CD exclusive. Developed and released by Core Design, this is an amazing 3D-esque shooter. One that almost wasn't an exclusive because there were 32X and Jaguar CD versions that were nearly finished. What draws me to this game is the awesome pixel art. Seems like too many shooters of the day wanted to use 3D polygons, but this one demonstrated that you don't need fancy 3D chips to create a beautiful and playable game. However, this one does put the built-in scaling features of the Sega CD to good use. The first and third stages are on rails as you travel to the enemy's base. Simply shoot the ships and avoid their fire. The second stage has you skimming the surface, avoiding rocky columns, ships, and robots. Then finally, you have to destroy the spinning circular boss computer thingy. I wasn't able to do it though. God, I suck at games. Anyway, it was fun while it lasted, and the visuals kept me wanting to play again and again. Oh, and of course the music and sound effects are spectacular. They definitely have a Star Wars-esque feel about them. If you happen to have a spare $200, this is a must-own for the Sega CD. Or, you know, you could just emulate it, whatever you prefer. It doesn't matter, so long as you play it, because it's awesome. Star Wars Rebel Assault. Released in 1993, this game seemed pretty dated when compared to the X-Wing computer game released several months earlier. Makes me wonder if development was delayed somehow.
Rookie 1, we're approaching a fork in the canyon. Green 2 will go left.
Now this game has always interested me because, well, you know, it's Star Wars. It uses full motion video backgrounds where all you need to do is aim and shoot. The first stage had to be thrown for a loop because you can't just move left and right. Oh no, you have to move up left or up right to do a hard bank. Later stages get even harder as you have to navigate through some rather narrow passages. The first battle against the Star Destroyer I almost won, but I couldn't take out the shield generators fast enough. Firing the X-Wing's lasers feels off. Actually, the whole game just feels off somehow. I kept kept wishing I could maneuver around better instead of having to go through the whole FMV scene just to get back to the Star Destroyer shield generators. The music is the actual Star Wars theme, so I had to mute it to avoid getting flagged, but it's definitely not of very high quality and noticeably scratchy. I've been very curious about this game for a long time, and I can see why it's not very highly regarded. Maybe it was back in the day, I don't know. This might have been okay for a Star Wars fan while they waited for much better games to arrive.
Not bad, Rookie One. Looks like you can fly after all. Report to the Commodore system for the final phase of your training.
Starblade. This 1991 3D shooter blew my mind back in the day. Sure, it was a fairly simple on-rails shooter, but the look of it was something I had never seen before. Most shooter games were 2D affairs seen from above or to the side of your ship, or like the arcade Star Wars, which was all vectors. However, this game used solid polygons and brought us just a little bit closer to the last Starfighter game from the movie.
This is Team Leader. Take a right one, Geosword. I'll take a left one.
So when this appeared on the Sega CD, I thought there was no way it could replicate the arcade, and I was right. This version is essentially a streaming full-motion video game with a few wireframe 3D ships laid over top. Mostly smaller ships, but even several of the large ships are wireframes. That will clue you into which ships can be blasted and which ones can't.
Team Leader, this is Team Leader. Attack the port, Geosword. I'll attack the starboard. Over.
Unfortunately, wireframes are a huge step backwards. Yeah, I know the Sega CD wasn't powerful enough to do 3D polygons, but maybe if this had been a 32X CD game instead? Oh well. So yeah, the wireframes bring me out of this game, but you can still have fun with it.
Geosword, come in, Geosword. This is Team Leader. This is Team Leader. Attack the starboard, Geosword. I'll take the port. Over.
The Terminator. Oh yeah, this is the Terminator game that everyone talks about. Now, it's a little known fact that this game is actually based on a movie written and directed by the guy who created Titanic, James Cameron. In this game, you play as Kyle Reese blasting Terminator robots in the apocalyptic future of 2029. Ah crap, only a few years to go. I better get my phased plasma rifle ready. Anyway, this disc actually has quite a bit of footage from the movie with music that sets the mood. And then the game starts and the music totally doesn't fit. Don't get me wrong, it's great music created by Tommy Tallarico, but it's a little too happy for a game like this. I like the shooting gameplay in this one, but aiming on the stairs can be challenging. Also, it's a little tricky to figure out where you need to go sometimes, but not too bad. It does get a little bit worse though as you play through it. I did get stuck in this spot here in the Skynet building before I was able to go back in time. Still, I really enjoyed this one, maybe because it's not super hard. Definitely one I want to play through all the way to the end. The Ninja Warriors, a port of the 3-screen arcade game developed by Taito in 1987. The Sega CD game was released 6 years later in 1993. I imagine by then that the game was pretty dated. This one has you taking on the role of a ninja robot on a mission to take out a rogue president. That seems interesting. Anyway, I always choose the blonde female ninja because I keep thinking that her giant ponytail will whip enemies. Sadly though, it doesn't. Also, I noticed that the player's character moves rather slowly and honestly isn't very ninja-like. Shouldn't she be hiding in the shadows? Instead, she's just out in the open attacking enemies bad dude style. You can attack with shurikens or your knife, but as a robot, you probably don't need either of those. The visuals are a little plain and drab in the color department, but there's just something compelling about this game. It seems just about right in the difficulty department, and I love the simplistic gameplay. What can I say, I'm a simple guy. The Super Nintendo version of the game may be a huge improvement in the graphics and gameplay department, but I still find myself coming back to this one just as often. Maybe try it and see if you become addicted to it like me. Alright, well there you go. 20 of the more notable games for the Sega CD. I bet I missed a few awesome titles, and I'm certain you will tell me about them in the comments. Anyway, thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye everyone.